Good morning, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today on this webinar with Modern Requirements and Solaris and Riksgälden. We'll be starting in about 2 minutes time at the top of the hour, so hang in tight, and we are excited to have you join us today. So hang tight, in 2 minutes we will be kicking off this webinar. Hi everyone, we'll be just starting in just a moment. And thank you for joining. We're just going to give a few more moments here for folks to join. So hang tight. All right. Good morning. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining today. We are excited to talk about speed and control in finance for here at Modern Requirements, a transformation journey with Modern Requirements. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about who we are as an organization and how we have helped financial service organizations improve their requirements management. And we have a couple of guest speakers today to chat with me and share their experience. The folks we have on the call today and who are going to be joining us. First, my name is Shihan. I am the SVP of Global Sales here at Modern Requirements. You've probably seen me on other webinars or on calls, and we may have spoken in the past or even joined some of the posts or seen some of my posts on LinkedIn. We here at Modern Requirements are thrilled to continue to expand and grow in financial services organizations globally. And particularly, we've grown in the North American side, but also in Europe. And today, we actually have a partner of ours, Solaris, and their founder, Anders, to speak about his experience in using Modern Requirements. And to give you a high level on Anders, who's going to be joining us today, he's been in the requirements management business and a practitioner for over 30 years. He's used numerous tools and techniques. He's founded Solaris, a consulting company who is a partner of ours, and I've had the pleasure of working with over the last year, and I'd say north of a year. He's worked his skills and he's worked in systems engineering, requirements management, helped numerous organizations both improve their requirements management capabilities, but also have them implement and find success in using modern requirements and creating kind of an end-to-end experience within their organizations. And lastly, he's going to be speaking on behalf of his experience and how he's seen organizations improve using modern requirements. And we actually have a mutual client today joining us in Riksgälden, the Swedish National Debt Office, who's being represented by Helena. And she's going to be sharing a little bit about where they were at and how they have improved. So basically, that is going to be what we're going to be looking at today, modern requirements, how it's been deployed, how we've helped financial services organizations to level up. Before we dive in, I wanted to give folks who are new to Modern Requirements a chance to get exposed to who we are and what we do. Modern Requirements has been in business for nearly 15 years and a Microsoft partner for north of 13 years. And what really makes us unique is that we are the go-to requirements management partner of Microsoft. We have been working as an extension into Azure DevOps when it was known as TFS from its very beginning. Modern Requirements has been involved with Azure DevOps. And today we see Azure DevOps being completed by Modern Requirements productivity tooling. As you can see, we are available on the Azure Marketplace, and many of our financial institution clients have large Microsoft relationships, which they can buy modern requirements and Copilot for DevOps off of the Azure Marketplace and have it benefit their overall Microsoft relationship, as we are MAC approved. And what MAC means is Microsoft Azure Consumption Commitment. That is normally found on enterprise agreements with Microsoft. So as a Microsoft partner, as an extension into Azure DevOps, we are an award-winning solution, and we hope to bring you guys on as a user if you see what you see the benefit of working with us through our partners and hear a story from our clients. So what do we do exactly? Well, what you see at the top of my slide here are all the capabilities that come natively with Azure DevOps. Everything below is what Modern Requirements offers, from creating custom reporting to having smart docs and document generation directly within Azure DevOps as a natively integrated experience. These are capabilities we've added into the ADO experience. Many organizations that I know within financial services manage this using SharePoint or Word or Excel and have multiple sources of truth. But by having smart reports and having smart docs, we're creating that single source of truth. Towards the middle of the screen, you'll see project auditability, where through Modern Requirements and Azure DevOps as the entire platform, you can have review management. You're able to do trace analysis and seeing a beautiful trace matrix with a few clicks, all within the experience. Also, 360 impact assessment. We know that legislative changes happen in financial services, and how do you manage that change? What products are impacted? Modern Requirements adds the capability of truly understanding what that impact of change is, so that nothing is left behind. One of the other elements I want to touch upon quickly, which is one of our newest and sexiest products, is Copilot for DevOps, which you'll see on the bottom right-hand corner of the slide. Modern Requirements developed Copilot for DevOps in tandem with Microsoft's AI transformation team about 3.5 years ago. And we have continued to evolve that product with multiple new releases. In fact, next week, we're releasing version 7 of Copilot for DevOps, and there's lots of goodies are jam-packed into that as well. But you know what? The reason for us to chat today is to look at what the experience of our partners have been in implementing Modern Requirements in financial services, particularly the Swedish Debt Office. And so without further ado, what I'd like to do is to get started on that portion of our conversation today. And just before we do, I wanted to kick off a quick poll. The poll will kick off in just a few moments here. And while it comes up, I do invite you all to respond. We want to get a sense of kind of the audience that's joining us today. And if you are watching this as a recording after the fact, please feel free to reach out to us directly with any questions you may have, and we would love to do a demonstration for you too. All right, and here's the poll. What is your biggest challenge in managing requirements within your organization? And we've given you a multiple choice selection: maintaining compliance and audit trails, keeping pace with frequent changes, collaboration between business and IT teams, traceability across multiple tools and systems, or all of the above. So I'll give everyone a moment here to respond. Okay. So we got about a third saying all of the above. Okay, we got an equal split. Now back to a third. Okay, great. Well, thank you for responding. This is pretty much in line with what we expect, and many clients and I'm going to say prospective clients, face these challenges and don't know that Modern Requirements exists and don't really understand how it best can change the way your organization works and drives productivity. But what I'd like to do now is bring Anders to the stage so that he can share a little bit about his experience in Modern Requirements on Azure DevOps and how it's transformed the way in which he works with his clients. Anders, thank you for joining me today, and we're very excited to hear and see what you have to share. Thank you so much. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Shihan, and I will add as well Helena here. We will actually present a couple of pieces each, and Helena, you are Much welcome.
Hi, Lena.
So, I'm Anders Ekman. I've been working with requirements for more than 30 years. I have seen a lot and I've done a lot, and tried a lot of tools. And I spent 15 years in banking industry, and I've been working with requirements within banks since 2007, I believe. And I saw the agile wave coming in. For a while, people were using more formal techniques that were popular to use rational unified process. Maybe some of you have tried that technique, the process framework. And then in Sweden, at least, we had a bank using rational unified process, and then came the agile wave. And a lot of things that were done in the past were no longer done. It was the idea was to have then a Scrum team and have a board with post-it notes and so on. And in the early days of the agile wave, there were few tools available. So we found a way actually in one of the projects to combine the old way of working with tooling, like requirement tooling and test tooling, and then still have the development team working with like a whiteboard with post-it notes. And what I've been observing now is that as part of the agile wave, we have some teams feel that there are two dimensions. One is the kind of the speed dimension. Another one is the kind of the artifact dimension. What kind of system artifacts are we actually developing and managing and refining over time? So for the agenda here now, I would like to present to you, we have an introduction here to Riksgälden, the organization in focus for today. And Helena will give that overview, the context, and then I will talk a bit more about speed and control. And I was working for Riksgälden for 8 years ago, when at that time we worked in a more classical way, we can call it, a classical way of working. I worked it for a couple of years, then I departed to other engagements, and I came back, and then you had introduced modern requirements, and I've been working with modern requirements now as a business analyst at Riksgälden for a number of years together with Helena. So she will take on and talk about the current way of working, leveraged by modern requirements. You will see some insight into how we are doing it today. And also she will describe transition from the classical way of working to the new way of working, the agile way of working. And then I will wrap it up with my takeaways and lessons learned. So I hand over now to you, Helena, talk about the context.
Thank you very much, Anders. And it must have been quite a shock for you, what we were working with at the time. So I represent the Swedish National Debt Office, or Riksgälden in Swedish, and we have a couple of areas to work with. These are our central areas. It's government of debt and borrowing, cash management, financial stability, deposit insurance and investor protection, and guarantee and lending. And also lately we have the new area for us, but old in Sweden, that's in financing of nuclear waste management. So that is the organization on very high level. And we found that we needed really to fit in the requirement and business analysis process within the tools and the everyday work. And we also needed to fit in a better workflow and artifact view. And could we get all of these together with test and developing in the same tool? That was our hook. Can we do something about this? And the target groups within the organization are, of course, the whole development chain, you could call it, within IT, but also as well people within the financial field, such as economists, analysts, and professionals and business operations within our organization. And we find that the tool are quite suitable, really suitable on that level, because it's not a big obstacle to start working in it, and you find a way as soon as you're inside. So we have a very nice working environment nowadays, especially compared to what it was before, but we find it really neat and handsome. So I hand over to some organizational overview from your side, Anders.
Yeah, I can add one thing here. As a business analyst, I think some of you are business analysts, as I am. and requirements we have. I mean, we have quite complex banking logic. We have a banking system. So, I mean, it's similar to what many of you have on your side regarding complexity. And we tackle it pretty well, I would say, within Riksgälden. So that I think I think it's quite representative, even if the number of counterparties is less than what the big bank has. It's still same kind of challenges regarding complexity of business logic and so on. I think by that we can maybe move on to next slide.
Anders, if you don't mind, I just want to interject one moment here and just share that many of our financial services clients do find it challenging to make that change, to go from a document-centric way of managing requirements to a platform-centric. And one of the things that I'd say that I've seen you do with your clients and using modern requirements is do just that. Help folks make that transition to go to a platform-centric way so they can move faster and have better controls in place. So that being said, we're very excited to hear and what you folks both have to share. And yeah, back to you. Sorry, Anders. I just wanted to share that.
No worries. Feel free to interrupt. So moving on then. I mean, Helena and I, we are both in agreement. I mean, Helena is also a seasoned requirement professional. So many years of requirements management on her side. So we have a very inspiring discussion internally on how to work best with requirements. And what we have concluded here, we are thinking quite good agreement there, is that with introduction of like a workflow management tool, you have your Kanban board and you have your tickets that you are effectively moving from left to right in the project you run. It's very, very good to track the work you have to do. But simultaneously, you have also the system descriptions. You do have definitely requirements that you want to keep over time. It can be compliance requirements. It can be user requirements that actually survive over the project timeline. And next project, next release will take the same requirements and start to refine them even further. So that is kind of the artifact dimension, that if you have a pure workflow management tool, you don't have that so easily supported. But if you have a tool like modern requirements that supplement the workflow part, then you have a more complete way of working. So I would say here on this slide, very simple slide with two dimensions. The speed dimension is like the tracking the progress. Do we progress properly? Do we have a good tracking of the tasks? And in our environment, Helena is the master on this topic. So she controls what we're delivering over there. And of course, then we have the control part, the artifacts part, and there we have requirements that we have support by modern requirements to track. We can do baselines, we can make smart documents and so on from Azure DevOps with modern requirements support here. So there are more to say. So we have really covered both dimensions, I would say, in this way. And now moving on to the old way of working. I don't think it's a surprise what I'm coming to now. Before in the past, I've been working more than 30 years with requirements, and I've seen the trends come and go. And some trends are coming back again with a new name, but same thing under the hood, so to say. But the way we worked in the past at Riksgälden, when I was involved 8 years ago, we worked with Microsoft Office. We had MS Word for writing use case specifications, and we had no requirements management tool. That we used the Word to write down the requirements, the functional requirements. And then, of course, we had also non-functional requirements. For that, we had an Excel, and we also had business rule in an Excel. That was like the setup for the requirement work. We had the test management tool, the HP QC or ALM tool for test management. But there was no tool integrations. It was like a bit of a stovepipe model. Traceability was done manually. We had like an Excel spreadsheet, manually managed, where we wanted to track like dependencies between different use cases. And the way of working was that I was very part of this in a quite big project. I was working as a workshop leader, and I was leading workshops, collecting requirements. I went back into my office and started to write the Word documents. And I was not alone. We had a team of more people doing this kind of requirement work. We were requirement analysts. And we were writing Word documents, and after a while, we felt it was ready. So then we called back the business side to do the review, have we understood the requirements properly? And if they felt it was good, they approved the requirement document, and then we could start to develop and test it. The cycle time was pretty long. And I mean, amount of documentation was pretty extensive. So it was on this kind of control versus speed diagram there. I think the dot is there, not high speed. We had somewhat control, but we lacked the kind of the traceability functionality that you have in the requirement management tool. So it was a pretty manual process. We could develop, but it was a bit slow, you could say. And then, of course, if you had a long cycle time, then if somebody come back from the business side and said, hey, we changed our minds, we want to change a bit here now, then the kind of the new iteration coming back there to revise the Word document, then we have to update the document and then have a new cycle to manage change. So it was the old way of working, a classical way of working, and I believe that some of you are maybe doing this, or even today, that you work with MS Office and have not yet gone into like a dedicated requirements management tool. And maybe some of you work with a workflow management tool like the Azure DevOps, but haven't considered what about the other dimension, the kind of the artifact dimension. How do you manage artifacts? That's the question. So having said that, that was like the old way of working, and I departed from Riksgälden a few years, and then things happened, and then we had the current way of working. So I hand over to you, back to you, Helena, the current way of working.
Yeah, thank you, Anders. But we are actually refining it all the time. So we were not set and done when you re-arrived to us. Yes, it's like you have told. It's about work tracking. It's done a lot through ADO, the Azure DevOps, but we also use some news to the platform, and we have the scope management through change requests. And change request, I will come back to that. And we also have test management. We use it's now integrated in the platform with Azure DevOps. It was not when we were searching for our new state, but now it is. The test coverage analysis is done through modern requirements and trace analysis, and we have the possibility to track delivery through tasks as normal work within ADO, through sprint board and board. And we also have the dashboard for certain highlights and status that we follow. And the modern requirement reports, that's one crucial ingredients that we use a lot. We have achieved transparency, and we use the same tool all day. So we spend our days in the same world, and that is not an underestimate to find that as a crucial thing for achieving our goals. And we are a lot more, not to say totally agile, but we are really agile today. And everything is alive and updated and very easy to version and baseline if we need to freeze something for a moment and then compare it to another moment. So it's really a crucial thing we do. We can take the next slide, I think. And we have the other dimension Anders spoke about, and that is the artifact, because as a former business analyst, you're in love with your requirements, but it's more to it. You really need them. They are the skeleton on which we build the product. The requirement structure is the product if you look at the dimension from requirement side. So that is what we have, together with some other things too. But this is really crucial for us. So we keep the requirement structure, and we also can use the diagrams module within MR. That's really a crucial tool for us. We can manage them as well as artifacts. And we have something we call business rules. It's not unfamiliar, I guess, but it is actually an item within the product. That's a customization we made. I will come back to that too. And of course, test cases and the normal thing you use. And then the requirement specifications, we can generate them out of the modern requirement smart docs and baseline them. So we also keep an artifact the old-fashioned way as a document on our server, but that is more for an archiving function, and within the smart docs we can use it and compare versions. Okay, we can take the next slide, I think. So here is a representation of what I tried to describe. We have the normal epic feature user story, that is the basic skeleton, that is a requirement structure. We rely heavily on that, and we also added an item called business rule, which is a part of a singleton part of a user story, but it can also be that one business rule is used in several requirements, that is user stories. And we can then generate a business rule specification on within smart docs, and we can version that too and compare so and forth. And also for the requirement specification, we generate it through smart docs, and we have it as a readable document kind of on the screen, or we can put it as a PDF or Word or what you need. So that is really the crucial thing, that's really the central of the requirements when it comes to requirements within the MR and Azure DevOps together, the platform, so to speak. And of course, you are not forced to put out the requirement specification as a whole. You can also choose to, through queries, you can of course choose to do increments that you need. So there are no limitations, since everything is an item. You can build your documents as you like. It's very flexible, and the system is quite agile in that way.
Helena, if you don't mind me jumping in for just a moment. First of all, I'm thrilled, and we're thrilled here at Modern Requirements to hear how you're using the platform of Azure DevOps to manage your requirements, look at it in real time, being able to baseline it, and being able to export it in Word and PDF. So that's great that you guys are taking full advantage of those capabilities. A quick question: from what you were doing before and the simplicity of what you're doing now, how much time do you think that helps you save, ballpark, or, in terms of efficiency or keeping up to date with current changes? And I'd love to understand a little bit about how, and sorry to put you on the spot here, but on how, how this has just really changed the way you've worked, and, what does it really mean to, go from what you were doing before and then starting to use a model requirements like tool, and model requirements, particularly in this case, to do what you're doing today? Like, how has it really changed the way you've worked?
It has. I think we can both fill in here, Anders. There are so many benefits. It's not only time. I think it's also the feeling of the lightweight, but still we are under control. We write our requirements, and we have a requirements process, and we have the approval process. But it's much more lightweight. The feeling of it is transparent. It's always there. It's easy to find our items and keep track of them. So I think there are many seconds a day you have saved, and if you put that all together, I guess we have saved a lot of time. But we have not, unfortunately, we haven't measured it.
Yeah.
But there's more than time in this.
I can fill in the following. I mean, we are less business analysts today doing the same work as a few years back. So, I mean, that is a saving in itself. I can do more now every day than I could do in the past. In the past, it was more like you were going heavy duty, writing Word documents day in, day out. Today, we are a bit more selective. I mean, what we have to cope with as a requirement analyst, as I am, is the way of working agile. How can I fit in writing requirements when the speed is quite high, because I still want to have control? And the way we do it now is that I can definitely go in and do heavy duty modeling of some complex business logic that is critical, but it's a quite big investment. So nowadays we work more like the bulk of the work is actually, we don't have to go deep down doing modeling, but we have to just track progress. And then I would say also the business analyst like me, it's much more now, I'm engaged in the team actively. We have workshops now where we have the tool running. It's not that I go home for 3-4 days and write the Word document and come back. We are doing requirements here and now live in the workshops. When the workshop is over, I normally have a draft, updated draft, and then I go back home, maybe say in the evening, I just polish it and come back and say, now we are good. Yes, we are good. So the cycle time has gone from, I would say, from maybe a week to 1 day when it comes to turnaround. So I
Thank
think
you.
yeah.
Thank you. So I'm hearing not only there's a material impact from a day-to-day and from a task-to-task perspective, but what I'm also hearing is that there's a higher level of control, and because there's a higher level of control, you're able to move quickly without losing anything and staying on top of everything. That's what I'm hearing. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, thank you. So, sorry to interrupt again. I just got excited and I wanted
No
to
problem.
double click into it. Okay.
Okay.
Back to
We
you,
can
Helena.
move on.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
thank you. We can move on to the next slide then. It's no problem. It's only nice to have that discussions. Diagrams. Just showing two slides of that, and that is we use diagrams. That is a module within MR, and we use it in two flavors when it comes to user stories, and that is we can have a small flow within a user story. It of course depends on how you slice your user stories, but if we have a kind of medium user story, it could be a small flow within it, and then we have the item connected, linked to the user story. And then the next slide shows the other case, the other option we also use. The next slide, and there we have a diagram where several user stories could be involved with the flow, and then we can still link the object within the diagram to a specific user story. So you can access it either from the user story itself. You can go to the diagram just with one click and look, okay, where are we now? And vice versa. You can use the diagram and click and find the user story describing everything in detail. And this is really a strong companion to us. This is really a crucial tool, actually, because this
I
is
agree. And also, we have been doing swim lanes diagrams in PowerPoint in the past, swim lane to show the payment flow. So what you see now here is a swim lane diagram in this diagram module in Modern Requirements. We were doing it in PowerPoint in the past, and they were very, very useful. But we could migrate them into the tool, and then we can also link the swim lane diagrams to our other work items, which is powerful. And what you show here, Helena, is actually another kind of topic. Is about we talked about earlier. We had use cases, traditional use cases, and we moved over to user stories. And sometimes we want to really show a sequence of user stories that actually build up the flow. And then we can use this kind of sequence diagram to show the sequence between stories, because they are usually more short and concise than a full use case, if you are familiar with that kind of notation. So here's how you can then organize stories into a flow. Yeah, Shihan, you enter the scene. You want to say something?
Yeah, it sounds, and I hear a lot. I hear this a lot from our clients as well, and I'm hearing it again now. Is that the ability to create a diagram and use that diagram as a jump-off point to figure out what requirements are missing or needed, or even the connector between the objects within the diagram to say, okay, there, as a result of this connector existing, I need to have a requirement, and being able to do that directly within Azure DevOps and create those requirements, and even using the diagram as part of the requirement has been an area in which many of our clients have said that they find very useful, that they didn't have before, and now they can do it in a single source of truth. And so what I'm hearing and seeing here, Helena and Anders, is that within financial services and within Riksgälden, the Swedish Debt Office, and the organizations that you're working in, there's great value in using this capability to have a complete understanding end to end. Is that did I get that right?
You get it right. I mean, in the past, modeling has been like something very important. If you want to really be specific on a detail, it can be some interface between two systems. You want to model it very carefully so you don't get it wrong. But we have been trying in the past to actually work with a quite powerful modeling tool called Spark's Enterprise Architect. And that's a heavy-duty tool, but it's also having a high threshold to use. So it's not so agile if you're not very good at it. So a few are. So maybe looking into alternative. How do we find a way to model in an agile way? And we looked into like Visio as well, and good old PowerPoint. But I say actually we converge now to do the modeling inside the model, the diagram module in modern requirements, because it's an easy to use way to do modeling, I would say. More easy than I would say than Visio. So we are now moving what we have outside into this diagram setup, because then you have your diagrams close to your work items in modern requirements, Azure DevOps, so you can link them together, which is very, very powerful, I would say.
Brilliant. Thank you. And for all the folks putting in questions into the question and answer box, thank you. We will definitely we will definitely address those in our Q&A section towards the end of our session today. So please keep them coming. And that being said, Helena, Anders, back to you.
Change slide.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I had something in front here. Yes, we have chosen to do a small customization. We have really tried to avoid a customization as good as we can, but we have found some things. And that one thing is a change request, which is the driver for change, actually. So every change we do has an ID and a change request to rely on, and then we connect it to the user story, and then we start off with the normal process, changing or deriving tasks from that and the sprint planning and everything. But we also found that we have to reopen our user stories because that is the requirement. So if the requirement stays as a function, then we have to reopen it and revise it, and then we baseline and have a new version. So that is done, and it has been working quite well, actually. And that might be a bit some news for some. Hasn't worked with that kind of changing, but it's more like we open a use case as we did before. Now we open a user story. So as a requirements specialist or business analyst, it's not any news.
We can maybe add Helena, that it's a way for us to link together the business side and the IT side, because the business side come up with change requests. They want to maybe have some new feature, or they want to extend or modify something existing. Then we have a change control board, and there we have CRs, and there we do a handshake between a business representative and you, Helena, regarding they have a need, and we have to say, can we deliver? So then we have the CCB as a kind of the handshake between the two sides, business and IT. And then, of course, I, as a requirement analyst, then step in. If the CR is approved, then I will go in and modify existing user story or write a new one. So, yeah.
Yeah, really true. We did some small customization also within the user story. We needed a requirement state because we need to handle the process, the requirement process. The requirement process is very often totally forgotten. So we still have it, but we don't have a massive use case or several use cases. And as you said, Anders, we are away for weeks writing requirements. It's not like that, but we still need the different states of the user story, and we need the approval from both the business side and the IT side before it will be developed further. And we also had, as I told, the business rule item. Okay, we can move on, I think, from this. Yeah, we can say a few words about the transition. You were now familiar with our pre-state, the before state, and also the current state. And this is actually what took us there. We were starting in this, I think it was 2018 or 19. And then we were migrated 2020. Before the pandemic, anyway, it was. I don't remember the exact date any longer. So we have had the platform, and during that time it was also converted to Azure DevOps, as you mentioned, Shihan, and because we had TFS before. We can take the next slide, I think.
Mhm.
And we had another tool where requirements and tests were using. So we have different systems tried to work it together, but as I told you, we had different worlds, so it was a lot of things to handle just managing that. And we had a vision of our future state. We had our needs for the new system, what we may want. So we started a pre-study, and we did an inventory and had different trials with some systems, and at the end it was Azure DevOps that were in focus of a pilot study, and we had a sandbox. And of course, everything around this, I'm just talking about the more hands-on thing, not, of course, there are a lot of things to do when switching a system besides this. We were stuck 2 times in the process. The first one was when we tried Azure DevOps out of the box. At that time, it didn't have the test manager within it, and we were stuck there. We couldn't work. So we wondered what we will do now. This is not a good idea to move into Azure DevOps as it is, or as it was then. But at the same time, they were merged together. So then that obstacle was over. Then we tried the requirement process and tried to work with that. It didn't work. So that's when we found modern requirement helping us out of this. And with a small modification on the user story in Azure DevOps, we could use modern requirement and Azure DevOps together for the whole chain. So that was really a breakthrough, and we were happy. And we still are. So, okay, next slide, I think. The migration we were a bit worried about. In one way, it was easy because we didn't have all the requirements in the requirement system at that time. We had the use cases beside. But this was both good and bad news, because then we had to do the work with migrating use cases. But this went really well. I think we did one scripting within test, and the rest we migrated manually, project by project, and it was not as hard as we thought. Actually, and then we found also, we did an inventory of the old system and find there are a lot of things we don't need to move into a new system. We didn't need to migrate it, but we did an export and kept that as an archive if we needed it before the close down on the old system. And then
maybe add, Helena, that the kind of the migration from the old way of working, it implied, for it means part of the operation in Riksgälden to migrate 120 use case specifications into Epic feature story. It was kind of quite big work, and we have been working on fine-tuning that now. I think we have a good mapping now. How do we map use cases with the kind of the basic flow, alternative flows, and so on, and extensions and what have you, in use case modeling? How do we map it in a good way into the structure of Azure DevOps? So we learned that over time, you can say.
Yeah, that's true. Of course, it was not only, but it was a bit easier than we were afraid of. I should say anyway. Okay, and next slide. I think we are migrated now, aren't we? Okay, yeah, and of course we had the verification period before we were on the new platform. So I think that was where we ended, and maybe you will wrap up.
I will
at the end, Anders.
I will. I mean, I've been working, as I said earlier, for 30 years as a business or requirement analyst and seen a lot and done a lot in that area. I'm still passionate about the topic. I think it's still fun to work out there with modeling requirements in any different way you can do it. And I mean, I was really watching the agile wave coming over the banking industry, sweeping through and sweeping out a number of old ways of working. And in came then the workflow management tools like Azure DevOps or Jira. And they had a very good, they were actually mending something we didn't have in the past, namely a way to track work efficiently with the Kanban boards, etc. I mean, we tried in the bank I worked for to work with like post-it notes manually on whiteboards. And it had its charm, but we were really urging to have a better way of working inside the tool. At the time, 2007 or 8, whenever it was, we were like wishing to have a tool for doing this kind of post-it note shuffling. And of course, now we have tools for this. But I would say workflow management tools like Azure DevOps are good for tracking progress, but less good for managing artifacts. And the artifacts need to be managed. I've been asked by a couple of banks I worked for earlier to come back and talk about what about requirements now. They have been adopting the agile way of working. Maybe they work with a safe framework, for instance. But they still now want to know about what about requirements management that we did in the past. Is that totally gone, or do we still need requirements? And my answer is always you need it. You have to embed it in a smart way with an agile way of working. And I will say that I have hands-on experience of modern requirements. I've been part of migrating data into modern requirements at Riksgälden, help them to actually tune the tool modern requirements to make it work in an agile fashion. And I would say it's a good complement, and I think particularly the financial services industry, where many organizations are using Azure DevOps, then this modern requirements is a very neat addition to have to actually get the other dimension, the control dimension, under control. And I would claim, I mean, here you have both the old way of working at the left-hand side and the agile way of working. I would claim that you would gain both speed and control if you have a tool at the bottom where you have the kind of the artifact handling well integrated with the workflow tracking. Then you get both the best of two worlds, I would say. So you actually get from the left-hand side to right-hand side by doing this. And that is actually my wrap up. And I hand over to Shihan. Back to you again.
Thank you, Anders. And, you know, I think you said it so eloquently on how it's still required. And the only thing that I would add is that because modern requirements is natively integrated into Azure DevOps, and Azure DevOps is a Microsoft tool where it could be on-prem or in the cloud, in which we support both, your data is secure. And that's the next big question organizations ask us. They see the value, they see that they can move quickly, they can remain being agile, but can have better controls in place. But what happens with the data? Well, the beauty of it is because Modern Requirements is a Microsoft partner, because we're an extension into Azure DevOps, you can also have the safety and security of knowing that your sensitive data is securely held within the Azure DevOps instance. And Modern Requirements is simply a productivity tool that helps you orchestrate it and apply meaningful automations to make that process simpler so you can continue to move agile. So that being said, Helena, Anders, thank you so much. There's a slew of questions in the question and answer box here, and I want to start to go through those, and I think we should field them as they come. And okay, here's the first one. You mentioned that you initially worked in more traditional authoring role before transitioning into agile practices. Could you describe how your responsibilities as a business analyst have evolved since adopting agile development methodologies? Andrew, I think this one is geared towards you, but I mean, by all means, either one of you folks can go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, I can take it on this to start with my view. Maybe you can give your view because you also have a number of years of experience, but I give my view. In the past, I was the author. I used Word for writing requirements. I was the author. A lot of my hours were spent on writing Word documents. Of course, I was doing Excel as well to trace and so on and to have some kind of overview summaries, but it was very much Microsoft Office and Microsoft Word. Then with the agile wave is what a bit like volatility regarding the requirement role. What would be the requirement role? Do you need requirements still? And people realize, yes, you need requirements because they will survive the project The next project will take them on again and modify them. So I would say that the transition for me, because I've been following the trends and I've been doing the kind of the state of the art way of working for 30 years. A state of the art now, I would say, a business analyst that works in an agile team need to have a toolbox of various ways to address how to capture requirements. It can be anything from having the workshop will still be there. It was there in the past, it's still there today. But the difference is that today I do the requirements during the workshop. And if we have a bit more simple requirement task, we are done. When the meeting is over, we are done. People are happy. We have 1 hour together, we leave the meeting, it's done. In the past, what I would have is a number of meeting notes, PowerPoint notes, and then I sit at home or in my office and do the after work, and that was hours of work. And then I have to send back to people, do you agree? So I would say that the business analyst of today need to be agile, but we should not forget another dimension. That's actually when you model a system, some parts of the system are so critical, so you must spend more time on those parts and be able to do modeling that quite deeply, because not all things are lightweight, like interfaces, like payment messages. You have to be super strict there, and then you have to say that it's going to be an investment for you in time as a business analyst, but you need to do it because nobody else will do it. So I would say, as a BA today, you have to be able to work both, in an agile way of working and follow the team's velocity. Because if you don't do that, you are left behind. So you have to follow the team. And occasionally you have a need to actually sit down and dig deep with the modeling part. So I would say today it's a bit more like you have multiple ways of working. In the past, it was mainly working rigorously in a Word document, and that's it. So I think it's my change. Helena, do you have anything to add on your side from this topic?
Maybe from another perspective, that I think since the user story is the requirement and we know that this requirement is really in focus, the team is more likely to ask, where is the requirement? What does it really say? Where are we? What are we going to do? So I think the requirements are more in a good way in the center, and they are a steady point to rely on when the team is working. You have to connect the test cases, and you derive your tasks out from the requirement, and you let them go along the board. But still, we have more questions like, but hey, here is the requirement. Here is the way. So that was harder when it is a document on 30 sides, 30 pages in a server. It's likely that maybe we just spin off and find a new world, a new answer, new requirements that are not really there. So that's another perspective, and I think that responsibility is, maybe it's not higher, but it's more obvious.
Helena, I think you touched on something very valuable there, where what I'm hearing from our existing clients is that if they're doing requirements in a Word document and putting it in SharePoint for the duration of that project, on a subsequent project, how do you query that? How do you understand what requirements exist that have been already signed off on to help move with velocity? By using modern requirements and Azure DevOps as your platform, it's a simple query to see what do we have that can fit the bill. So now, on the next project, it's not about, to your point, creating a new requirement, but it's a matter of, and changing responsibilities. Okay, what do we have in stock, and now what do we need as the delta to get to the next, to the next sprint or the next initiative or the next project? So it's not starting anew every time, but it's ability to reuse what you already have and what you've already developed.
It's a very good point, Shihan. In the past, you had a lot of shelfware. You do it once, you do it really documentation, but nobody knows about it. Then come next project. You can't find the requirements, so they write it again. With modern requirements, you have repository. You can find very easily the requirements.
Exactly.
So less application.
This is a great segue, I think, to the next question. Do you use AI features for the processes you've mentioned. And before, Anders and Helena, you jump in here, but if you don't mind, I'm going to jump at this one to say, Anders, you mentioned that historically you'd have, meetings and a session, right? What we've seen with Copilot for DevOps AI chat capability, by the way, we have a webinar next week on version 7, which will probably touch on this topic. But what we've had clients do is take call transcripts of a JAD session, right? And take the call transcript, drop it into AI chat, and ask it to build requirements from the call transcript, even further driving velocity using AI. Now, out of curiosity, at Riksgälden and Anders and the organizations that you're working with, are you guys currently using the AI capabilities today?
I'll leave it for Helena to answer.
I think I'll leave it for security and information security office, but we are investigating. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
And and ultimately, and to share for folks on the line, and for Vicky, who's asking this question, one of the capabilities that Copilot for DevOps, it's a newer feature, it's a newer capability. One of the key components of it working with many of our financial services clients is that those financial service clients are buying and they're maintaining their own large language models or own LLMs for security purposes. But our Copilot for DevOps asset within modern requirements can be configured to use your own LLM, adding that layer of security and trust that your governance department requires, but also helping you drive forward in your requirements management using an LLM that the company, that your organization would have already approved. So there's yes, we've built it natively into this tool so you can drive productivity. And yes, if you prefer to use your own LLM to take advantage of what we've built, you can do that too. So I wanted to touch upon that.
This Shihan, I know the power of AI. We have other clients that have adopted AI requirements management, and it's a very, very powerful way to speed up even further.
Yeah.
So AI requirements management, they go very well together. But you have the LLM problem, and having a local LLM, I think, is the way to solve the problem if you have sensitive data, because
Exactly.
several clients of us, they refuse to send data out into the cloud. They can't do it.
Exactly.
Then the local LLM will fix the problem. It's not maybe as powerful as one of the big ones out there, but still it makes the work easier for the client.
I have one thought on this, and I'm going to move on to the next question. If we can go back for just one moment here. A lot of organizations are having an AI office, and as a business analyst or working in financial services, you want to get the most out of modern requirements and Copilot for DevOps. Sometimes the easiest way is just to go to your AI office and say, hey, there's a tool that exists that can leverage our LLM to make my work go faster. And guess what? Those AI offices within those organizations are looking for opportunities to drive the use of AI within the organization in a safe way, their own LLM. And Copilot for DevOps is another one of those vectors. So we've actually got a lot of leads from organizations that have an AI office and wanting to use our tooling to use their AI within a new area of the business. So that's just another way. If this piques your interest, please reach out to me directly, and I'll be happy to kind of walk you through what we have available, but also how your AI office can take advantage of our tooling. All right, next question. This one I'm going to point towards yourself, Helena and Anders, and I can come in after the fact. Are all system artifacts managed directly within ADO and MR platform, or are there certain artifacts that are better maintained externally and only referenced within ADO MR? Helena, Anders, what is your experience?
Helena, do you want to take that one?
I think I can try. I can start off. We have the ambition to move everything that suits into the platform because it's so much easier to retrieve it. It's so much easier. It's one click away. We are not there yet. With the requirements, we are there, I should say. We can be if we want to. We may have some legacy work to do. But within system architecture, we are not really there yet, but they are investigating, and we may find ways to move things even from the servers into the platform. So the ambition is really to have one platform, and then when we need to generate documentation, And since that is very agile or it's very flexible, you can build the template as you like, and you can put in both text sequences, and you can merge it with the diagram. So you can build the documents that you need, and you can do it for different purposes. So it would be a benefit when we have more things, more of our artifacts within the platform. But I should say that it's architecture that's our next move on the experimentation.
We also have quality requirements and non-functional requirements, and it's like an Excel sheet with a lot of columns. It's a multi-attribute Excel, and to move that into like the items in ADO MR is not straightforward. And we discuss how to do it, when to do it, but then we do instead. We have then the reference item, work item in ADO MR that points to this kind of separate Excel sheet. We also have a trade-off between we have business and IT. Business is not fully onboarded into MR ADO, so they work still a little bit old-fashioned. And there are artifacts that they want to maintain, like the information model, and then that might be better referenced from MR ADO than to have it inside, because the business hasn't adopted. We are working on adopting them as well, bringing them into model requirements, but they're not there yet. So for various reasons, it can be a multi-dimensional Excel sheet that we really have to cut down quite brutally to bring it into the tool. Or it can be reasons that some of our stakeholders have their own way of working and don't work in ADO at all. Then we have to find a trade-off with them. But we can still have ADO MR as the hub. And from that hub, we can point to wherever artifacts are residing, and we do it now. So in any artifact of relevance is either in ADO MR or it is referenced clearly via some kind of pointer where it is located.
My thoughts on this: I'm going to give you the modern requirements view, and can speak from on behalf of the experience of our clients who are at different points in the journey of having all their requirements and all their artifacts within MR ADO. What you'll find, folks who are on the call, and Lucy for asking this question, and for folks who are reviewing this recording after the fact, is that by having more artifacts within the platform, understanding the impacts of change becomes that much more precise. So even if you don't have all items that are in the platform itself, using our partners to have connections and syncs between other systems and having it represented in ADO and MR as a single source of truth, when you're faced with change and you go to either impact assessment within modern requirements or Copilot's impact assessment, where you're going to use AI to traverse all the linked work items to understand what is truly the impact of change, by having them either represented within the platform or connected into the platform through sync bridges, you have a much more accurate and predictable management of change. And that's where we've seen the most value. Now, as a quick little teaser, modern requirements dev team is in the midst of releasing a Jira to ADO sync bridge to make life simpler, so that organizations that are working with Jira, they have the ability to sync information between the two systems bi-directionally. More to come on that, and there's going to be a website and a launch on that topic. But to answer the question, for the organizations that are further on maturity in adopting modern requirements in ADO as their single source of truth, the real impact is around change. And that's really where things get messy, and that's where we see the most value. Hopefully we've answered that question. Okay, are there any capabilities to help visualize gaps between org rules, user stories, and our test cases? I have an answer for that. Maybe I can jump in real quick, and then if you don't mind.
No.
So there's actually a couple of ways to skin this cat, and I'm going to quickly share a little bit about dynamic prompt, which is a capability within our Copilot for DevOps experience where you can actually run 2 queries and have it do a comparison for you and tell you exactly in a table query number 1, query number 2, and whether it maps. So here's a quick example on how, in doing gap analysis. Suppose you have a series of requirements that need to satisfy an ISO, and you want to know if your requirements satisfy that ISO. You can give dynamic prompt that query and say, okay, does this query of requirements satisfy ISO 9001. A table will be produced. It will tell you to what degree it is satisfied or what areas are not satisfied. So in short, we are leveraging the power of AI to help organizations do gap analysis in areas that may have taken days, if not weeks, to thoroughly go through item by item. We're now finding ways of doing it within minutes by enabling the AI component of Copilot for DevOps. Now, that's how I would approach it with the technologies and tools that are available today. Oh, Helena, Andrew, is there anything you want to add to this one?
Well, Helena, we do baseline and baseline compare, of course, look for deltas there. That we do.
Yeah, that we do, and we take out the status report if we need to see if which items are changed within this scope. If it's the business rules, which items are changed and when, and that gives us a hint of where to look. But of course, if you are on this, I find it really interesting with the prompting you were describing.
Next week we have that webinar on version 7.
Yeah.
We'll touch upon that. And actually, this is another way of understanding gaps is in our intersection trace matrix. If you take 2 dimensions, you'll be able to see, if we're looking at, let's say, user stories and we'll say test cases, you'll be able to see where there are links and where there aren't links. And the beauty of that is you can make and break links in a single view. So you could do it en masse. Now, in Azure DevOps, if you were building a link, you'd be doing it one by one, work item to test case one by one. But by using our traceability capability within modern requirements, you can see that gap visually immediately and then also do something about it, and not just be a view, but an interactive view where you can make the necessary connection. So that's one other way of using modern requirements to understand that gap, but also do something about it and close that gap. Cool.
Oh, I forgot about trace analysis.
Yeah.
Thank you. We use that.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's probably another way to do it. The AI part's very sexy. The traceability is, a very practical and tactical way of tackling that same challenge. I'm going to keep moving on here. We have a couple of more questions. Let's go to the next one. Okay, I have. Do you think AI or automation can play a role in keeping models synchronized with evolving requirements and workflows? I have my thoughts on this, but Anders, Helena, thoughts on this before I jump in?
I definitely think, it can play a role for sure. It can do it. Then I would say, AI is not perfect. It can maybe hint where you have synchronization issues, but I think it will be if you're a seasoned professional and you have support from AI, then you can speed up the work significantly about synchronization of models. That's my view on that one. I believe in AI here.
Yeah. AI is a great tool. It's a great asset. It's a great co-pilot. But ultimately, there has to be the main pilot, the captain, which is yourselves. And so to Anders, to your point, it's a great assistant into helping you direct where there potentially is lack of synchronization. And then ultimately the goal is to leverage the powers, the skill, the experience of the people within the organization, and aided by AI to address that if there's any points where if it's not synchronized. That's typically how I would approach it, and our organization will promote how to approach it. We'll move to the next question here. Let's go to this one. What's your take on management's role with ADO/MR? How does it compare to the systems and workflows you were used to before? Helena, Anders?
Yeah, I think it's some of the things we have touched here today, but it's this transparency and visibility, and you have everything. You have different views and different functions to use or tools within the platform, but still it's the same artifact that we retrieve from different angles, and that is one thing I should.
And I would add one more thing here from my side. I think transparency. I mean, in the past, you had like reporting meetings. You reported back to your manager, where are you at the moment? And you did some kind of tedious reports. Now the manager can go in himself into the tool and check the status. I think that kind of feedback loop, you don't need it if you have a system where everything is contained. The manager can
So
do the
true.
queries or the dashboards himself, and look instantly, where are we?
And everybody can do it. So we have several managers.
Yeah, there's I can make 3 quick bullet points on this. Number one, our stakeholder licenses for modern requirements are free and unlimited. So if you have a leader, and those are again free and limited. So if you have folks in management roles who want to take a peek as how things are going, they can do that. The second point I want to make here is we have a tool called Smart Report. It leverages all the data you have within your Azure DevOps instance, and you can create custom reports for management to understand how things are going. And then the third point I'd like to make is that we have floating licenses for modern requirements, and those floating licenses can be picked up by anyone in the system and used. And so if you have, a management, the management's role in dealing with the platform with a floating license, they can come in, they can be a backup to folks who are working within the system. So there's multi-dimensional ways of how we've improved the management of requirements in the process, given that the tool is creating that single source of truth. I'll leave that one there. And I want to just jump on this last one before we wrap for today. How do you manage review and approval of requirements? In most RM tools, comments done in reviews live somehow in a separate world versus the artifacts requirements themselves. This sometimes leads to confusion. I always have an answer for this, but Helena, Anders, love to hear how, using modern requirements, how you managed through this.
Will you be first, or?
I can be
I'll
first.
go last.
I can be first. I can be first. I will tell the following. I mean, we are doing the review. There is a review functionality built into modern requirements, and we don't use it now, but I think we should move in that direction. We are actually doing a bit more informally. But I know about the review function. I think that's going to be something we're going to add going forward. We have a structured process with approvers and reviewers. So as of now, we use a more informal approach where we have a status of the requirement, and we invite people to go into that. We give the link to the artifact and tell them, or work item, please review and approve. Then we have the right people going in and doing this kind of review and approve. But I think we can leverage this review functionality that I'm aware of is in modern requirements. Helena, over to you.
That's so true. We haven't found the need and to use it before, but we are totally aware that it is there, and we could use it. We could at least try. We have the status which we rely on, so it's not informal. Once the status is changed, we rely on that this is the stuff until any question might rise, but otherwise it's and it also, we have it in history. When did this requirement get approval? And we write comments within the user story, so the comments are not really separated nowadays.
No.
If it's in the early stage, it could be comments during the working process, but I suppose that these are the comments, more heavy like comments in
I would
the
have
end
one
of
thing.
the process.
Yeah. And Shihan, actually, people can come back and comment on the requirement ad hoc. Sometimes somebody say, hey, I think this is not correct. So I think also a bit that the agile way of working is that something can come up, somebody read it one more time. So I would say you can have the formal review process where you're actually inviting people to really read. But then it can be a developer coming back to me and saying, hey, this requirement looks a bit strange. Can we look at it together? So I think this kind of ad hoc feedback is quite common.
Well, I think this is a great example of organizations getting great value of using modern requirements and not even using all of the capabilities that exist within it. And, review management is a capability that we see a lot of our life sciences, health sciences, pharmaceutical companies use pretty extensively, and maybe not so much in financial services, but definitely within some other areas where our review management tool allows you to have individual requirements or full smart docs sent out for review simply through the system. You click a couple of buttons, an email is sent, a link is sent, and anyone who has access to a free stakeholder license or a paid license can come in and add comments and sign off directly in that single source of truth. The beauty of it is that that sign off is crystallized in the discussion section of each work item with comments, time, and date stamped. And even within modern requirements, we have an e-signature capability to go to that level of security to say, yes, this is signed off and it's e-signed. So the review management tool is kind of extensively used in other I want to say verticals. And you know, the beauty ultimately, and where I'll end today's session on is modern requirements. There's so many different capabilities that create that single source of truth, and lots of organizations like we've seen with Riksgälden today, and Anders, in your experience. And again, thank you for your time today. In that they're using several key components of modern requirements and really have leveled up their productivity, their speed, their control, as we saw. And that's not even using all the capabilities that are available. And so different strokes for different folks. There is lots there within the tool. And I do encourage you all to reach out to me directly, reach out to Anders and Helena if you have any questions. And if you want to see how Solaris can help your organization level up as they have many other organizations, or if you want to see how modern requirements tooling can help you create that single source of truth, please reach out to us at modernrequirements.com or through Solaris's website directly. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn or Anders directly on LinkedIn as well. We do have another webinar coming up next week to really drill into our AI capabilities that we're launching and some of the new AI capabilities we're launching towards the end of this year. And also, we have a couple of shows that we'll be doing a demonstration in Orlando, Florida, at Live 360 in mid-November, and we will also be in Europe in March at DevOps Live in London. So follow us on LinkedIn, follow us on our website, and we would love to meet and connect with you all. Thank you again for your time. Anders, Helena, I really appreciate you guys sharing your experience with modern requirements, and thank you again.
Thank you too.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.